All right, we are in. We have Kenny Santucci in the house. Thank you for joining us today, Kenny.
Thank you for having me, boys. It's an honor. I've heard the list of celebrities that you guys have had on here, and I'm honored to be one of the, I guess, the top five, right, that you
Yeah,
guys have had so far.
I think we went. Yeah, we've got eight on the list. You're the fourth to do it. And as far as celebrities go, by the definition of celebrity, I could make a compelling argument that you're top of that list.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Hey,
Sure, you're going to
don't
get way bigger and better people on here. The trajectory that you guys are on, you just keep going.
don't discount the celebrity status, Kenny. I'm hanging out and training people here locally in San Antonio, and I was telling my boy that I was training here in my home garage, right behind this
Yeah,
wall. I'm
yeah,
going to go out to New York. I'm going to this awesome event, Strong New York. My buddy Kenny Santucci, he's like Kenny Santucci. And he's like, I was like, well, shit. Do you ever watch the challenge? He's like, fuck, I love Kenny. You know what I mean? Like, and so I was like,
good.
I mean, it's still surprising because I don't know how long ago that was.
I'm, it's been over 10 years. It's been over 10 years. So I actually did my first show in 2005. So, it's been 20 years since I started. So,
How
Man.
long have you been coaching?
I started coaching in like 2009, like doing some private training stuff. A little bit, I dabbled before that, but never made it a career until like 2009.
Okay, I definitely want to get into the strong New York stuff, but you want
Mhm.
to just maybe walk through that arc from kind of the old career phasing into the new career? Because I know you became a
Yeah.
trainer, you launched a gym, like that shit's
Yeah.
useful for everybody who's listening in.
Yeah. So, right out of college, I actually remember asking my college counselor, I said, hey, I was an art major at the time. And I said, I really love training. I got into it. I used to be really heavy as a kid. I love this training thing. I was super into like bodybuilding and endurance training at the time. And I said, how could I do both of these? I wanted to get into athletic training or kinesiology or something involving the human body. And she's like, you'll be in school for the next 7 years. Don't do it. Just graduate, blah, blah, blah. So after school, I got a NASM book. I ordered NASM offline and I was like, all right, I'm going to start doing this. And I kind of dabbled in it and I just wanted to understand it. At the time, I was working at, like when I first got on television stuff, I started working with Joe DeFranco and a couple different people in New Jersey because I was like, all right, if I'm going to do this, I need to go with the best and learn from the best. And I was really fascinated with the way they were teaching me and why they put certain exercises together. So it was all pretty new, and it wasn't like it is today where everything's on social media and you could learn from so many different people. You had to like find and seek out these people, and they were people in magazines and stuff. So I was on television. I was on and off shows for years. It was like 6, 7 years in a row. And then I was like, this isn't going to last forever. And I said to myself, if I'm going to be somewhere every day, all the time, right? Because that's no matter what you're doing, no matter what field you're in, you're going to do that job. So I said I wanted to be in a gym. So I was like, being whether I own a gym or I own a nail salon or a restaurant, like you have to be there. If you're the owner, you gotta, take pride in that and do that skill and do that thing. Um, so I was like, I really enjoyed training. I was doing it for people here and there, and then fully made it a career in like 2009, 2010. And got an opportunity in 2012 to open up a gym. I got asked by a couple that I was working out with at the time. They were like, "Hey, we want to open up this gym. Will you be the figurehead?" And that kind of spawned everything else. And
Did
I just been going down that road ever since.
Yeah,
did you
man. I
know
mean, when did
how
you and I first catch up in New York? That was
I That was probably
we lost you for a second when you got a call coming in, but
oh
you're good to
shit,
go.
sorry. We probably met in like 2014, 2015, somewhere around there when I was at Solace, because I had started following Aubrey at the time, and it was like the birth of like kind of the on it stuff. I remember like finding that pretty early on, and you guys were doing a lot of the unconventional stuff. Maybe it was like even 2016, and I was like, I love this. Actually, one of the guys who had worked at the time, the Asian guy, I forget his name, he had reached out to me, and he was like, "Hey, I'm going to come out. I want to put you on my." He had like a little talk show and stuff at the time, so
Mhm.
it was probably close to like 8, 9 years ago.
Yeah, man. I mean, how did you really kind of broke the mold in terms of the openness and receptivity to a variety of different training modalities at Solace, right? I
Yeah,
mean, a lot of what was happening at that time, people were a lot more narrowly focused. So it was really out of the norm for you guys to be, I mean, pretty well known in the CrossFit space, but you
Mhm.
didn't just do CrossFit. You had a variety of different offerings, right?
Yeah, so we started. It was CrossFit Solace, and then when I had taken over and became GM and started like discussing ownership and things like that, I had said, if we're going to sell this to the masses, we can't just be CrossFit. Because I had been in the CrossFit space at that time. I started to see it shift a little bit. That at that point, people knew, either heard about CrossFit and loved it, or heard about it and didn't want to do it. So I said, we need to make this more user friendly. We need to make it more acceptable and social setting for women to come in and get involved. And it still was not what it is today, right? Like you go into a gym now and it's mostly women standing in front of the dumbbell racks or taking pictures of themselves and doing bodybuilding. So it's great. It's where I was hoping the world would be when as the consumer became more educated. But we started doing HIIT classes. I started taking barbells out of some of our classes. We started doing powerlifting and weightlifting and kind of just ushering in all the elements that people really liked about it. And then I really got into the unconventional stuff and the kettlebells and the clubs and the maces. It was before everybody became a fucking kettlebell expert online in what 2020 when the pandemic hit and everybody's a kettlebell expert. So we were doing that stuff. I mean, I was following Eric and you and seeing what you guys were doing. I was like, oh man, I got to get down to this gym in Texas. These guys are doing some really cool shit down there. And I knew what on it was because of DeFranco too. Like when it
Hmm.
first happened, I was at his gym and he's like, yeah, these guys from Texas bought all my shit. They're moving it all down there. I was like, oh, no way. I was like, dude, what are you going to do? He's like, I'm going to build a smaller space. So I had known about it pretty early on.
Dan, that's funny how the lineage they all tie together,
Yeah,
right?
it's
There's
such
the
a small
overlap.
world. Yeah.
I was gonna ask, when you get tapped to open up a space, did you have any idea what you were getting into? Because we know how hard it is now, and you've been through the ringer. Did you know then?
No, but ignorance is bliss, you know? And when you're younger and when you're young and
I can
stupid,
relate.
yeah, when you're young and stupid, you're just like, oh, yeah, yeah, I could do this, you know? And sometimes that helps and sometimes it hurts. I wish I would have known. I didn't go to business school. And I always tell people my first business was my entry into business school. I got to learn what not to do. I learned a lot of things that had I done them or read about them in a book, they probably wouldn't have set in as much as they did when you screw up in real life. So
Yeah, I think you kind of everybody starting something like you naturally suck at execution, and you have like no way of even knowing that you're bad at it until you've kind of real world tested it. I feel like
yeah,
gyms are particularly they're particularly a challenging proving ground for that because it is competitive. Oftentimes it can feel undifferentiated, and you have to find a way to stand out. And then operationally, it's very complicated. It's not a high margin business.
yeah. Well, I mean, listen, you think about it. You have so many great operators out there, and there's so many people, all these charlatans who are constantly being like, "Oh, I could teach you how to make an eight-figure business owning gyms," and blah. There are very few people you could list off the people who have turned, you know, one space into 10 or 15 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You just said Luca, right? Luca's an amazing operator. The guy's in there all the time. He's an incredible coach. He knows his shit. He teaches, he has a gym business. He's one of the very few people that I would hire. I made the mistake of hiring somebody a couple of years ago who was an absolute piece of shit. Um, these people who go online and they're talking about how they could, they own, I could help you do this, I can help you do that, but they've never done it themselves, right? So it's the same thing. You're this naive young idiot. I was like 29, 30 years old at the time, and I'm like, oh, I could totally do this. But managing people is so hard, and it takes wisdom and experience and a lot of learning to do that. Negotiating and dealing with landlords and contractors is another whole nightmare. Like brick and mortar is so hard. You're getting a lot of people now, or you've seen a lot of people over the past couple of years who have built these incredible businesses out of social media. I think there has to be some level of you being an annoying fuck to the point. Sorry if I'm cursing too much, but like
It's okay.
the people who do really well on social media are just like annoying people who probably, if you met them, probably don't have a lot of friends because you have to constantly hammer the internet with the your same shit over and over again. When I do it, when I'm pushing like an event or I'm pushing something, I'm just like, I'm annoying the shit out of myself. This sucks. Like you got to constantly put the message out there. And then you'll always still 2 months later or 2 weeks later, you'll have somebody be like, I didn't know you opened a gym. It's like, shut
Yeah.
up. Just shut up, dude. Don't even tell me.
I can't imagine even between the gym. I
Yeah.
mean, I think you said yourself, leadership, managing people. These are things. I was just on an interview with a kinesiology student yesterday, talking about some of the challenges of being a coach, and a lot of times, we focus on just the delivery of the technical skills, right? When
Mhm.
we start out, and then we're like, yeah, I could do X, Y, Z business,
Yeah.
whatever the case is, and the key was you always find yourself at the point of your current level of incompetence. You grow until you find out what you suck at, or what you suck at that you need
Yep.
to learn right now.
Mhm.
And what was really impressive when we were hanging out, because we definitely got to talk about Strong New York. It was a fucking amazing event,
Yeah.
but concurrently, you had two different things launching off. You had this amazing fitness event, on the pier in New York City, amazing venue, amazing energy, everything going on. But then you were opening a new facility
Yeah.
Yeah.
at the same exact time. And
Yeah.
so, like how do you manage the growth of the strong brand in all of those different ways? And maybe even what is the brand? How do you see it?
To tell you the truth, I just kind of go off. I was just, I just left my gym telling people this. I go off what I feel, and if it feels right to me, I just do it. With the t-shirts and the clothing and stuff like that, I wanted to do it. I had the event. I started doing the event,
You
and
have the best merch.
oh, I,
You have the best merch.
I appreciate that. I wish the world thought that. So I was selling as much as like, you know, what's his name, Guzman and all these guys who are like multi millionaires off selling merch. No, I don't have any investors. I don't have any backers. I make all decisions myself, and sometimes I feel like that's a good thing because I have creative control, and this is what I like doing. And then there's other times where I'm like, well, if I had some partners who could help out and leverage. Friendships or money or whatever it may be to help me grow the brand quicker. But I play the long game. I had partners in the past. My first gym, I had some partners and they screwed me over. And then at Solace, I had some shitty partners and that ended poorly as well. Um, so I was like, I'm going to do from here on out. I'm just going to do everything on my own, and if it takes me forever, and I never see the end game, then that's fine. But at least I'm doing what I love, and I have complete control over it. I had the opportunity to open up the gym, and it coincided at the same time with opening up, with having Strong New York, and I was just like, all right, I'm not going to sleep much. I need to make sure everything else is dialed in, right? Like my nutrition, working out, all those things. Like I need to be as dialed in as I possibly can be so I could execute on all these other things. And that's what it was. I don't really have much of a social life. I don't really go out anymore. I don't drink. So I was like, at night, I'll take care of the things that I could take care of here and then handle the things for Strong. And then during the day, I'll drive out to Jersey and take care of the stuff in Jersey. So yeah, I like the challenge. I like the hustle. I think there's a discrepancy with a lot of people nowadays where it's like you don't need to hustle. You could just do it. There's a lot easier ways to do it, but I've been lucky enough to work with some really wealthy, well-to-do people over the past, 10 years of my career plus. And I've gotten to chat with a lot of these people. And whether they're 35, 55, or 75, they all hustle. And I think it's just a mentality. Doesn't matter how much money you have. Some of these guys are multimillionaires, some of these guys are billionaires, and they're still hustling and they're still working and they're still doing what they need to do because I don't think it's about the money for most people. Like if I have $1 million in the bank or $5 million or $10 million, my life gets a little bit easier, but it doesn't give me any more purpose, right? I need to find a purpose. And for me, creating these events and creating the environment and creating something that like I feel like I'm adding to people's lives and adding value to my own life, then that's what makes it all make sense. I don't think the money, people get so wrapped up in money, but I end up wearing the same shit. And you guys could probably talk to the same thing as a trainer or a coach or anybody in the field, like a lot of these newer brands that come up, I get boxes of shit, but I end up wearing the same stuff all the time, you know? So I'm not like, what am I doing? What am I wearing? I'm not going anywhere. Like, I
It's
don't,
focus.
yeah. It's just like
It's
I'm fully focused on what I enjoy doing. And I just found comfort in the uncomfortable.
Yeah, dude. I go back to the conversation we had with Hannah Eden last week about there's a time and a place for work life balance, but it's probably not in the first couple of years that you're
No,
you're building something.
no.
It's sort of like you're just really looking for the path forward. And if you're a founder, solo founder, or even if you have co-founders, like you're the path. Like you have to figure out what the path forward is. And in the beginning, when you're under resourced, that probably means that you're gonna have to do it. And
Yeah.
eventually, you're gonna find out through trying to do a bunch of different things. There's some stuff you're good at, and there's some stuff you suck at. And the stuff you suck at, you have to go find somebody to help you with.
Hmm.
But you can't just start on that step. You know what? You're not. You don't learn enough in the early days to create something that's truly unique or useful or interesting if you skip that step.
Well, here's the thing too, and even when you find someone that you think could help you, now you have to vet that person and try to figure out like, all right,
Yeah.
what their motives are. Are they willing to help? Is this person going to be my demise and take everything that I have? Like there has to be some sense of trust there. It's very hard to find the right people. I think talent is so hard to find, whether it's an attorney or it's another coach or it's anybody. You have to, is this person giving me the best of their ability, and could I find somebody who might be better, who can help me more efficiently? So I've dealt with that a lot over the years. I've paid photographers and videographers thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to like just capture Strong New York or the gym or the merch or whatever it is. And you pay them and then you get the content back and you're like, what the fuck is this? This is like I could have gotten somebody for half the price who could have done it better.
Yeah.
So like everybody's out there telling you how great they are. I like when somebody's like, hey, let me just try this. I'll show you what I could do, and then you can pay me from there. And I'm always willing. If you could talk to 99% of people that I work with, I never haggle people on price. I'm like, if that's what you think you're worth, then let's just do it. But give me exactly what I'm asking you for. Because if you don't, then it's going to be a problem. You want to get paid. I want my shit done the right way. Period. The end. And I'm going through that with my electrician right now. I'm going through that with my landlord right now. And it's like, oh, promise, promise, promise. I could do this. I could do that. All right, then just do it and then you'll get paid. But I'm not paying you until you do this. And I'm not trying to be a dick about the money. It just makes no sense why I would pay you and then I got to go pay somebody else to clean up the job you fucked up.
Yeah, dude,
Yeah.
we could do an entire episode on like how to work with third parties when you're
Oh,
building something because like you know what you want.
yeah.
They have no idea. And that's like the resting state, right?
Mhm.
So it's like communicating that, setting expectations, especially if they're creative. You tell three photographers to shoot an event the exact same way and you're going to get three entirely different
Yeah.
products, right? So it's like it's also the other thing. I mean, I've noticed this at Samba. Like we've gone through. I think we're on our third like social media marketing person,
Hmm.
and the first one was a friend, and that person now has an incredibly successful business with brand marketing. At the time, we were like, "What is this?" It's going to be funny if she sees this. We were like, "What are you doing?" Because we were like, we thought she wasn't doing a great job. And what actually happened was we had no idea how to
Hmm.
communicate with. So that was step one. The next one was a friend of a coach on the platform that we knew well, and it was like we had this hunch that it wasn't going to be a great fit, but it was really convenient because we had this connection. So we said, let's try it. Wow, it didn't work out. Finally, the third time around, it's going fantastic. I love working with this dude, but we interviewed a bunch of different
Yeah. Yeah.
people
Yeah.
and picked the best one.
Yeah.
So as soon as that convenience factor sets in, it's like you have to ignore that and you have to go out and find a bad or a good person.
Yeah.
Or you're going to waste money and time.
Well, everybody thinks nowadays AI is going to be the cure for everything, but at the end of the day, you're still a human being and you still need to relate to people and work with people. So you have to have other good people involved.
Yeah.
So as much as AI could cut corners and help you out, it's a tool like anything else. I was one of these people a year or 2 years ago when you start hearing about AI, you're like, oh my God, it's the end of the world, it's Terminator, all over again. But when you start to think about it, you're like, well, it's not really that intelligent because it can't come up with something creative. It's just pulling a bunch of shit off the internet. It's all the things that humans have already created, just mashed up and put together quicker. It's just a data service. So for me, I'm just always like, all right, where can I meet? Because creativity comes from people, and meshing well with people and having that chemistry with somebody else. I was just saying about just in politics, right? Somebody could walk into a room and everybody could just be drawn to them. You've seen it 100 times with coaches. Like, John, I think you're one of these people where it's like people ultimately, like, you're an older guy, people respect you, you're strong. Like, there's so many things that kind of draw people in. And I think if there was another younger coach who was probably, jacked up and everything else, wouldn't get the same type of response from people as you would. So there's something to be said about that. It's like who walks in the room, how they command the room, and how they negotiate with other people.
Well, in advance of that, like, Don was talking about this iterative process. You have to like swing and miss, swing and miss, swing and miss. But
Mhm.
what is it like when you find somebody that is going to stay with you and be part of that creative process? Like you said, Google AI, it can only give you what you ask for. And
Mhm.
part of that process is, like you said, riffing with somebody who's just as invested in the vision, understands you, your creative vision, is doing the work and showing up when everybody else is asleep. you
Yep.
you know and how is that when you find someone like that, and how game changing, because I know
Yeah, how do
you have that person in your story.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, Christy's definitely for me like the yin to my yang. I mean, she's bad at all the stuff I'm good at, and I'm horrible at all the stuff she's good at. She's great with logistics and getting people, on board with things and keeping everything organized. Whereas like I'm more of a big idea guy. I'll come up with crazy ideas and she'll help me execute on them. So that's super important. There's, I remember hearing years ago, there's a documentary about bands and musicians and stuff. And they were saying they were like, it's so hard to lose a band member because you would think that it'd be easy to fill the slot with another great guitarist, but on top of being a great guitar player, you now need to be able to live with these people all the time. You need to be able to mesh with the band. You need to be able to have the same type of chemistry. He goes, so let's just say there's 5,000 guitar players that could play really well. He goes, all right, narrow that down because now we need somebody who could live with us. So that you narrow it down to about 3 people. And then those 3 people, you're going to hope that out of those 3 people, one of them will kind of get along with everybody and be able to do everything that that other person used to be able to do. So for me it's like owning multiple gyms. I mean, I probably had 6 or 7 trainers in my first gym. There was probably like 20 of us at one point at Solace. Now at my gym here, I probably went through 4 or 5 different trainers. Like, to have 1 or 2 more other people who could execute the way you want. And a lot of times, to what you were saying, Dom, like to find somebody who fills that gap, because sometimes you need to be able to tell AI or Google exactly what you want, but sometimes you don't know what you want or know what you need. So that person needs to come along, eh, like a shooting star and just be like, oh, that's it. That's it. I don't know what the fuck it is, but that I need that, you know?
Yeah, if you don't know how to ask like the right questions when you're trying to tackle something hard,
Yeah.
good luck. And so that's where the hard work and the iteration comes in. It's like figuring out how to map that kind of like intuition you have to the real world, make it
Yeah.
actionable and executable. Then you run into the like, well, I actually suck at doing this, so let's go find somebody who's specifically good at that thing.
Yep. Especially with the marketing and branding, like
Yeah.
Strong New York, the clothing, that stuff. Like I want it to be very New York centric. Like I could list out all the things that I want, but for somebody to tie it together the way it needs to be tied together is very hard.
Well, dude, let's go back to Strong New York because I mean, we've talked about this a little bit. We've actually talked a little bit about this on social media, you and I. But like, your Strong New York story is one that I think everybody needs to hear
Yeah.
because there's that concept of overnight success in this space, and everybody attributes somebody who's success. They go, "Wow, like look how quickly that thing was. Look how amazing this new thing is,"
Hmm.
and that's almost never the case. If you could go through kind of the genesis of Strong New York
Yeah.
and the process that it took to take it from year one to where it is now, I think people will really appreciate to hear what that was like.
Yeah, it probably started when I went to like a Perform Better, probably back in like 2009, 2010, somewhere around there. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I was like, I liked a lot of the speakers. It was very, but I was like, it's kind of got this like 90s feel to it. It's, it's not updated enough. And then I went to like the Idea Conference, and I was going to all these different like health and wellness expos. I went to the Arnold, I loved it. I went to the Mr. Olympia, I loved it. Like I liked a lot of the elements. I went to Summer Strong. I mean, I went to FIBO. You can name a health and wellness expo, I went to it. Um, and then here in New York, I was going to Food and Wine Festival and the coffee show and the boat show and all these other different expos and trade shows that exist in New York, but there was nothing for health and wellness. So I said to myself back in like 2015, I was working with Reebok at the time, and I said to them, I was like, hey, I was like, it'd be cool to do like a New York City fitness show. Like, why don't we do something like that? So they give me like 10 grand at the time, and they were like, all right, put it together. So like, what are you really gonna do with 10 grand? Like, that's not even that's I spend that on, hotel rooms basically now for like flying speakers in and stuff. Like what is 10 grand? So I started in 2015, and we started in the basement of the gym. And it's funny because, Christian Harris was at one of the first ones, and he was at this year's event. I had the guys from like Caffeine and Kilos, and I had Meg Squats and Silent Mike, and I had a lot of like Instagram people at the time come through, and it was a cool event. And we were like, oh, that was successful. There was 50, 60 people there. Maybe we could do 100, right? And so a couple months later, we did another one. We had like 120 people, and it slowly started to grow over the years. And the last big one we did before COVID was in 2019. We partnered with High Rocks, and I had met Christian, who owns High Rocks, a couple months before that, and I had sat down with him, and we kind of shared this vision, and on a handshake we came to an agreement that we were going to do this High Rock Strong New York co-branded event at Pier 94, and this was like December of 2019, right before the world shut down. And it was great. It was really cool. They had hired me to work with them for the next couple months. COVID happened, everything fell apart. So we couldn't do any events here in New York. 2020, 2021 were shot. 2022 comes along, and I'm like, yo, I'm going to bring this thing back. And it was very like touch and go. Like, no, every venue in New York was like, oh, we can't do this. We can't have this many people in a space and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, fuck this. We're just going to do it. I just want to push forward with it. We ended up renting out Chelsea Piers at the time because we were planning on doing a big health and wellness event with Michelob at the time. I was working with Michelob, and I was like, let me just take the reins on this, and I'll do it. So one thing led to another. We came back in 2022, success. We had about 700 or 800 people. Then we brought it back last year. We did our first year at Glass House, and then this year. But like when I pitch it to people or it's on television, people are always like, oh, so this is like the second year you're doing it, first year you're doing this? I was like, no,
Right.
this is the eighth one I've done, and I've spent thousands of dollars, and I've tried hundreds of different versions of this. I'm probably over $1 million into this thing, um, you know, and it's just like people are always like, "Oh, it does well." I was like, "No, I just take the money and dump it back in because I'm like, I need to make this bigger. I need to go more grandiose the next year." But like, I just went down to that Eudaimonia event, which must have cost them millions and millions of dollars. I was just down at the C4 headquarters. They had like a little charity event, and that was pretty cool. I went out to Dubai for the Dubai Muscle Show. Like, I go to everything. Um, and I just like I take what I like, and I leave the rest, and I kind of just rebrand what I'm trying to do, and repurpose it and try to make it bigger and better. And it's New York. Everybody's like, "Are you going to take it somewhere else?" I was like, "No, it's called Strong New York for a reason. I wanted New York to have a health and wellness expo that we could kind of call our own."
What pulled you to continue to try year after year after year?
Yeah.
Was it a vision? What kept you going for 8 years building this thing to the point where it's now basically a household name in the industry?
Um, yeah, you know what? Like the closer it gets to the event every year, the more I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? This is torture. Like just negotiating with people, trying to get brands to sign on, logistical shit. It's a nightmare every time. But I really believe in it. Like I really know for a fact that this will be like a staple event. New York, the fitness scene only gets bigger and bigger. People are now, what I would have thought was a dream 10 years ago, to have so many people. Like, I don't have to convince women to strength train anymore. Like, I have people call me up all the time who are like, I that was so hard. Like, my mom, it's not even like, I don't want to say it's not even cool anymore, but like, when your parents got on Facebook, you're like, well, there goes Facebook. That's not cool anymore. But my mom and her friends are like, oh, we're going to go to the gym and go lift. I'm like, that's amazing. Like, I never thought it would get to that point. So we're at this point where it's becoming, it's at that critical mass point where most people are using it or not using it. I think there's enough people out there talking about how important it is. I tell people all the time, lifting weights and working out should be like brushing your teeth. It's part of hygiene. Like, you need to do it. I don't care who you are. I don't care what age it is. You need to be doing some sort of movement. Um, and knowing that and understanding that, I'm like, New York needs an event, and I've been doing it, and I want to do it, and I want to do it bigger and better. And I know I'm selling people something that is so beneficial for them. And the way I look at it is like, it serves three purposes. As a small business owner, I know how hard it is to run a small business, especially here in New York. So I want to help small businesses. I want to help restaurants, uh, food companies, drink companies. You get in front of the type of people who want to buy their shit. The second thing is, I want to get more people moving. I think if somebody's moving and focusing on themselves and making themselves better, then that gives them an opportunity to live a healthier, long life, which enriches my environment and my neighborhood and the people around me. So if they're living a better life, then you have less people shooting up fucking schools and pushing people on subway tracks. Because when you're focused on yourself and you're taking care of yourself, it's never somebody like that. It's always somebody flew off the handle who feels like society has pushed them aside, you know. And then we always add some charitable aspect to it, right? We always try to get somebody, a brand or a charity that we want to contribute to and help them out. Because I think if you when you start to take care of yourself, you see it a lot with celebrities and stuff. They start all these philanthropy projects because they get to this point where they're like, all right, I know how to take care of myself. Now, how do I take care of other people? And I think that's what life's all about. And it adds an opportunity for people to come together and communicate. And you love being around people who share the same ideas as you, right? You never want to be in a room where people are like, I don't really like that. I mean, what you want to be in a room where people feel the same as you. It's just a connection thing.
In 2018, my dad and I don't want to say forged passes, but sort of repurposed very old credentials to get into the Food and Wine Expo
Mhm.
at Javits Center. Maybe it's 2019. Um, that thing, you have entire countries that rent space
Yeah,
to present, right? They're the best of the best. Their
yeah.
vendors, their message, their brands, but an entire organization. I don't know how many people put that on, but I bet it's more than 100 or somewhere around
Mhm.
there, if not way more than that. Would you ever build a a massive business around putting on this event? What's the ultimate dream
Yeah.
with Strong New York?
Yeah, I mean that's it, right? Like, to rent out the Javits Center and have every hall with a high rocks going on, and a bodybuilding show, and people doing yoga, like everything. Right? I Strong New York is very different from a lot of the other events that I've gone to, in the fact that I try to make it more New York City centric, right? I want yoga and Pilates and things of that nature involved. Whereas, like, you go to something like the Arnold or the Olympia, and they'll dabble in some of that stuff, but it's mainly based around bodybuilding and supplements. I mean, that's what the whole expo is. Where it's like, I want to have more recovery, biohacking, more lifestyle type things. What New Yorkers are doing, right? I've been in the fitness scene for 15 years here, and I don't really know too many bodybuilders in New York, right? It's a very small population. It's massive on social media, right? You see Chris Bumstead and a lot of these guys have like 20 million followers. Like people around the world really admire this stuff. But here in New York, I think it's more about general fitness and taking care of yourself and eating better. And, it's more of a lifestyle thing. So that's what I'd like to do. I mean, we're already kind of getting to that point where I'm trying to reach out to bigger conglomerates, a lot of these bigger brands that own 4, 5, 10 companies that are all health conscious, right? Deodorants or soaps, food, drinks that are just more conscious about what they're putting in the product. And then this will be an opportunity for New Yorkers to walk down the street to the Javits Center and go discover products that they're like, oh, well, I could give this to my kids because it's a better type of cereal, or I could give them, wash them with this shampoo because it doesn't have as many chemicals in it. Like people are discovering, like, think about it, right? There was just that thing at Kellogg's, that thousands of people were marching on, the headquarters at Kellogg's because they're like, you're putting these dyes and stuff. People are getting poisoned for years, 50, 60 years now that we're just accepting the shit that they're giving us. And I think people are starting to fight back. And there are other people who are creating new brands. And I want those brands to be in front of people and let people test them out and try them out and have a good time with it and interact with other people who are looking for the same stuff.
Yeah, dude, you're doing something that I think John can probably speak to as well here because he's been a part of this for a long time, and it's elevating the independent, like in fitness and wellness, and really in New York, like it's all about the little guy who builds something really cool that they're really clued in, whether it's a studio or a nutrition brand or a gym, like they're keyed in on what a demographic really wants, and they build that thing up. And usually those people just need bigger and bigger platforms to share that with. And John, I mean, you were that for functional fitness, and it sounds like Kenny, you can do a major service to the industry on both the supply and demand side by
Yeah.
taking this thing supernova.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really cool to hear because if you talk about the three ideal outcomes that you wanted to create, right? And that was part of the dream, and the dream continues to evolve. And you're at a place right now, 8 years later, where if somebody asks, like, what does it take to make a dream become a reality? And you said it yourself, every dollar comes in, every dollar goes back, every dollar is generated, goes right back into the dream. And,
Mhm.
8 years later, I say it's really easy to see in being present at Strong New York, all the people were enriched by the experiences. There, the people were enriched not because everybody liked the exact same thing. They all believed in the same thing, which is like personal improvement,
Mhm.
good vibes, exploration, willing to like put themselves out there and try something new. And that led to like all those brands being able to really potentially earn the hearts and minds of some new consumers. And and I talked to a couple people that were New York based that I was like, oh wow, that's such a cool project. I'd love to get back out here and contribute in some meaningful way. So, man, I just can't get over like you are at the precipice of realizing the next level of this dream, and to see just how much you put into it, man, it's really impressive.
I want to see it go fucking massive. It'd be
Yeah.
awesome.
No, dude, listen, I'll tell you what. From somebody who, yeah, I've always been a comic book nerd. That's why I want to get out to that guy's gym in Arizona.
Yeah,
I remember going to Comic Con the first time they had it here in New York. I was probably 22, maybe 21, 22 years old at the time. And they were like, oh, Comic Con was always in San Diego. And I, never really made it out there to fly out there. They were like, they're putting it at Comic Con and it's going to be at the convention center. And I remember walking over there. I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. We bought tickets at the door. There was a couple thousand people there, but nothing like it is now. Last year I went there. I was with two of my friends, um, and we couldn't even get in. They sold 225,000 tickets. Do you realize
wow.
how many people that is? 225,000 tickets were sold. They go, we can't sell any more tickets. I had to scalp tickets in the parking lot because I was trying to get people to like buy, like people wouldn't even sell us their badges because they wanted to keep the fucking badge. I was like, dude, I'll give you $50 a badge. Just give me the badge. We just want to walk in and go walk around. And it's been like that the last like 3, 4 years. And I said, I go, if they could get 225,000 people to show up and look at comic books and art and stuff, I go, I have to be able to get 5 or 10,000 people to show up to work out and live a healthier life, because this is so much more meaningful in your life. Like, yes, entertainment's great and people love entertainment, but this will far surpass, the enjoyment of like eating buttered popcorn and reading comic books.
But I love the melding of those two things, right? So it's funny you say you've been into comics. I've been a comic book geek my whole life,
Yeah,
and the idea of training in developing yourself in some type of superhero theme,
yeah,
right, has always been something that was present in my training, even if I didn't talk about it outwardly. But if I knew somebody was geeky enough, we would go down that rabbit hole.
yeah.
And then shout out to Brandon over at Strict Vision Athletics, who's gone ham
Matt,
with that theme.
yeah,
But I think that's a really fun thing to explore, right? Because I had a hip hop artist that was part of my old gym, and everybody was like, hip hop and fitness, that doesn't go together because everybody's smoking weed, drinking, and then it started like an underground movement of fitness inspired hip hop, which
yeah,
was, everybody was like, no, fuck that, it doesn't work. And then next thing you know, everybody was finding ways to incorporate that theme into their hip hop, into their artistry, but also into their lifestyle. It changed a lot of things. And you talk about Comic Con, and we're talking about a fitness level event of that grandeur. Man, I wonder how well a bridge could be built between those two.
yeah. And listen, it's not like I invented this idea, on my own. I just want to have something here in New York. Like, you go out to the Arnold and it's, a couple 100,000 people out there. And you go out to the Mr. Olympia, but it's very, like, I couldn't see the people who come to Strong New York going to Mr. Olympia or the Arnold, because it's very bodybuilding driven, supplement driven, and it's very sports driven. Like, when you go out there, they'll have like a jujitsu tournament going on, and they have like powerlifting and a lot of that stuff. But to the average person, they have no interest in that, right? They don't care. Like, I love that stuff. I geek out on all that shit. I go to these things because I'm a fan. Like, I genuinely enjoy watching and learning and seeing a lot of this stuff. So for me, it's like I'm just taking everything that I saw that I really liked and just putting it here in New York, because nobody else is going to do it here in New York. One, it's crazy expensive. Two, I don't think most people give a shit enough. So I'm like, if I could give it to them, think of all the stuff that exists here in New York. Like, you could get anything you want here. It's so crazy. Like, there are stores that like only sell board games from like the 1980s and 90s here. Like, you could go to a store in Soho and buy a fucking board game that doesn't even exist anymore. So I'm like, if I can't get a fitness and wellness event to really take off, this year was the first year we had like a big corporate brand like Barry's come on board, and Rumble. And a lot of these brands are like, oh, okay, this looks really cool. Yeah, we could benefit from this. This is good for us. And now I could leverage those big corporate brands to push some of the smaller brands, right? Like, Tone House is a single location, but like, I want to see those guys do well. I want to see those guys grow. I don't even, if anybody who cares to pay attention to it, like, I don't have my gym there at all. Like, I don't put my gym, and I don't mix the two brands ever. And everybody's like, "Oh, you should push your gym." I'm like, "It's not about my gym. It's about growing the community." And I don't want anybody ever think that like, "Oh, this is a way for me to grow my brand." I'm trying to create an event that everyone feels included and everyone feels like they could contribute to it, because at the end of the day, we wear Nike sneakers because it makes us feel a certain way. We feel cooler. Like, we're part of this run club because it makes us feel like we're a part of something bigger than what we are. So I wanted to create something where everybody felt like there's a lot of times people ask me, they're like, "Oh, could I do this or could I do that?" I'm like, "Look, sure, let's just do it. Let's just get everybody involved, have as many people there as possible." Um, so uh it's grown a lot, and I hope that I'm making all the right steps, and I'm trying to do the best job I possibly can and service as many people as we can.
Yeah, the trajectory I think probably speaks for itself on that front, and it's also like you you didn't just have a vision, like you maintained the vision for years and years and years, and I think that's where some people maybe don't realize that that's if you really want to build something amazing in a competitive space. Like, we're not rocket scientists. That's not what fitness is about. Like, it's
Yeah,
about building momentum with a bunch of people over time. And I think it's just commendable how you've done it. Most good ideas are not given enough time to actually bear fruit.
Yeah.
But look, I know we're coming up on time here, so I want to ask you kind of just one more thing to close this thing out. Like for the coaches who've been at it for a couple of years, maybe trying to find their niche and really scale up in the space. Any words of wisdom that you have to share with people that are just getting underway?
Yep. I always tell younger coaches and guys who are want to be trainers or in the fitness industry or own a gym, whatever it may be. I don't think the end game should always be, oh, I'm going to own a gym or I'm going to start my online app. I got into this because I love it. I would do it for free, if I didn't have to put a roof over my head. I do it morning, noon, and night. I've never once said, "Hey, I want to be off the floor eventually." I was just listening to some fucking guy who sells these uh, gym training, like, "Oh, the first thing you got to do is get off the floor." It's like the best guys I know are still on the floor. You're
Yeah,
gaining all this wisdom, and you're becoming a master of your craft. You know, why wouldn't you continue to be a master of that craft? You could probably charge more and do more, but like I got into it because I genuinely love it. And I don't say this lightly. I say this all the time on every podcast I ever do. I'm going to die in a gym because that's where I love to be. I don't want to die on a beach drinking fucking margaritas in Cancun or some shit. That's not the end game for me. The end game for me is to be around as many people as I could in the environment that I love. So if I die in a gym, that's Mecca for me. That's where I want to be. And if you have the slightest inkling that you're like, well, maybe I don't really want to do this, then you don't really want to be a coach. And I suggest you go find what you really want to do. Because it's gonna get hard, it's gonna get tough, and if you're not willing to deal with that shit, then find something else. Because any
there's easier
job,
ways to make money.
yeah, there's definitely there's way easier ways to make money. For sure. Start selling your feet on Instagram or some shit or own.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Perfect, 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 perfect. John, any last words?
Nah, man, it's just always a pleasure to connect with passionate operators, leaders, innovators, and I think what's really amazing is the recurring themes that come out from people that are really doing it. And
Yeah,
and Kenny, you're fucking doing it, bro.
Yeah.
I'm always an honor to connect. Whether we're bumping into each other randomly in Miami at a gym, because every time I bump into you is at a gym,
Yeah. Yeah.
or whether I get to come participate in your events, man.
Yeah.
I'm super thankful for our relationship.
No, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, Dom. Thanks so much for putting this together, John. You are one of the greats. So keep it up, man.
yeah, guys. Let's go.